We've heard the term drain the swamp a lot, and despite claiming to drain the swamp, Donald Trump has actually hired endless bankers and finance industry flunkies to his administration, and it is having a real impact. Fines on Wall Street companies are down 2/3 under Trump. According to the News Corporation-owned Wall Street Journal, quote, Wall Street regulators have imposed far lower penalties in the first 6 months of Donald Trump's presidency than they did during the first 6 months of 2016, a comparable period in the Obama administration. So far in the first half of 2017, the SEC, FINRA, and Commodity Futures Trading Commission doled out $489 million in fines, about a third of the $1.4 billion that was levied in the first half of last year. If the current trend continues, we're looking at the lowest level of fines against Wall Street firms since 2010. What's the significance of 2010? I can't imagine why that would be a relevant year in thinking about this. All the populist rhetoric from Trump was always a sham. I was super clear about this. There's a difference between left-wing and right-wing populism. They're not the same thing. We interviewed Professor Federico Finkelstein about this some months ago. And I've been telling you, the swamp is being filled. The swamp is not being drained. And we're seeing the results of that. The proof is in the pudding, and this is going to continue. We now have reports, Pat, that Trump wants to repeal the Volcker rule, which was designed to prevent risky trading and betting that is damaging to the average person and presents huge potential for major financial rewards for Wall Street firms. Will the middle class notice this? If they notice it, will the committed Trumpists even care? This is one of those areas where, you got all the headlines about all the crazy stuff that Trump is doing, and rightly so, we need to cover those stories. But there's below the surface this whole other underbelly of legislative and regulatory stuff, things, very important things, as Trump likes to say, that are going on, and they are really bad for the average person.
If you remember, Trump said that Hillary Clinton was owned by the big banks and that he wouldn't let Wall Street get away with murder. And that was really just to play to his base, because I think a lot of those people in rural areas across the country may feel ripped off by these financial institutions or Wall Street or the stock market. And they get to a point where they see now Trump putting people like Gary Cohn and Steve Mnuchin into his cabinet. And they can see that it's a little bit easier for them to comprehend why that would be bad, but they're not going to know the specifics and the weeds of the Volcker rule and all this other stuff.
Trump rhetoric when he ran is, like you said, it's about, it's going to be bad for the hedge fund guys. When I'm in there, they're not going to like me. The Wall Street bankers aren't going to like me. He'll be back for them. He ran against them and for the little guy. And not only are those banksters benefiting, they're kind of running the show, right? As Pat is talking about, Stephen Mnuchin and Gary Cohn, Trump has hired a ton of these people that supposedly weren't going to like Donald Trump being president of the United States. And to say that the administration has made regulation, sometimes they like the term business friendly. How business friendly is an administration? Sort of a major understatement. And if we need any evidence that the entire drain the swamp thing was a total farce fraud, it's that people have been saying Trump firing people he hired is draining the swamp. When he fired Anthony Scaramucci, you actually had some ideologically committed Trumpists, totally dissonant cognitively, saying he said he would drain the swamp, and he's draining the swamp by getting rid of the deadweight. He was talking about what Obama did or pre-existing hires. He wasn't talking about firing people he hired, because that means he's draining the swamp he filled. I mean, it's one of the weakest, most flaccid defenses I've heard of Trump.
I don't think that one counts. I always venture to say that. And also, it's not as if Donald Trump is proposing legislation to try to get it through Congress to eliminate some of the regulation on Wall Street.
Although he would love that.
He would love that, but that would be too much work.
Of
Instead,
course.
he's just trying to abdicate his responsibility and not execute the fines and penalties for malpractice in the stock market.
And of course, underlying all this is that executive actions when Obama did them are very, very bad. But when it's Donald Trump using executive actions to circumvent or to avoid altogether having to actually get legislation through Congress, hey, he's just undoing really bad things that other people did. So you can't criticize him for using the same mechanism that he slammed Obama for having used from 2010 from 2009 rather to 2017.